Hello everyone and welcome to Capitol Watch for Friday, May 4th, our weekly look at legislative news from Jefferson City. And joining us from our governmental relations offices in Jeff City is Mike Reed, our Associate Executive Director for Advocacy and our Chief Lobbyist. And Mike, I guess one of the big issues this past week has been the negotiations on the state budget, but really those negotiations have made very little progress, haven't they?
Yes, they have made very little progress. They're stalled right now. There's a dispute between the House and the Senate, specifically over the funding for veterans' homes. The veterans' homes are funded in the budget one way, and there has to be a resolution to make sure that that works. So far, it's kind of a standoff between the House and the Senate. They have 1 week left. The budget has to be passed by next Friday at 6 p.m. I think I'm still very cautiously optimistic that something can be done and can be worked out by that time. Nobody wants to go into special session. But it's right now, it's a kind of a game of standoff to see how we're going to go and where we're going to go. I think there'll be, I know there are negotiations all during the weekend and try to get it moving so the budget groups can get together and come out with a conference committee report.
But really, Mike, our school funding for the foundation formula is not one of those issues in dispute. Is that right?
No, that's right. The school funding formula passed the same in the House and the Senate, so that's a non-conferenceable item. So in essence, that's off the table. Unfortunately, it's just held up along with the other items because there are several budget bills and they're just held up right now.
We had a piece of legislation pass the House this week, Mike, that deals with teacher layoffs. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's House Bill 1526. It started out had a lot more into it, but in the end, it came down to working on the last in, first out part of the statute. It's a bill pushed by a couple of groups. It has we're not opposed to working on the last in, first out situation and giving school boards a lot more autonomy in how do we handle this situation. There is some question on some of the wording on that bill that we will be working on in the Senate. It's going to be an interesting question. There's just 2 weeks left. Anything can happen. The bill can get a hearing and get through the committee and get through the Senate and get back to the House. But it's going to be a fight. The teachers groups are fighting this very hard, and we are keeping a very close eye because, as I said, while we agree in principle with the idea, the language in it needs to be tweaked some.
Mm-hmm. Another bill that moved forward this week, Mike, has to do with charter schools expansion in the state. Tell us about that one. Yes,
the charter school bill that passed the Senate was heard in the House, and it was voted out of the House without any amendments. So it'll go to the House floor for debate sometime this next week. I really anticipate that this bill will receive a favorable vote in the House of Representatives. However, the vote will be very close. They can expand in unaccredited districts as they are now, in provisionally accredited districts only sponsored by school boards or a charter sponsor that is approved by DESE. And in accredited districts, only the local school board can sponsor a charter school. The most important part of this bill is the accountability standards for charter schools, which is very, very necessary in this state now.
Another very important development this week, Mike, had to do actually with a court ruling out of St. Louis involving the ability of students from unaccredited school districts to transfer to accredited districts. This has been an ongoing issue for a couple of years now. And a circuit judge over in St. Louis ruling that actually the law allowing those transfers is unconstitutional. And that court ruling does have some legislative implications, doesn't it?
Has a tremendous legislative implications. You have heard me talk, you and I have discussed what we call the Turner fix and whether we would get a Turner fix, making sure what happens when students from unaccredited districts transfer to accredited districts and can accredited districts set limits, etc. This bill, the judge finding it unconstitutional, finding a violation of the Hancock Amendment to the Constitution, changes everything. It changes the landscape here tremendously. In trying to get a Turner fix, we had several pieces of legislation held up, and certain members of the General Assembly were trying to hold a Turner fix hostage until we took other quote, legislative reforms. That's off the table now. I don't see the legislature going and doing anything on the Turner situation or on students transferring from unaccredited districts to accredited districts the rest of this year. It's something to be discussed during the interim, but it is really off the table now and has changed the landscape tremendously here in Jefferson City.
Well, Mike, we have 2 weeks left, as you mentioned, in the legislative session. What can we look forward to during those two weeks?
We can look forward to an awful lot of bills trying to get through from one house to the other, a lot of people putting stuff on. I honestly look for the charter bill passing. I look for, there will be nothing done on foundation formula. I think there are several other pieces of legislation that may have some slight tweaks that may be able to come out. I think the biggest thing for education this year probably will be the charter bill, but I think there'll be more bills discussed, but the time is getting short, and the fact that the budget has not been worked on yet as a conference committee, and having only a week to do the conference, that's going to take a lot of the energy of the General Assembly. So I think that the budget will be the high priority, and we're going to just have to see what happens. So I would ask our members to watch their emails, because things happen very quickly, and we will need people to call as soon as they get an email, because amendments get put on and stripped off, and bills get changed overnight. So we will be on top of those and let our members know when we need their help, to contact their representatives and senators to tell them how their actions are affecting students in their district. And that's what we're about. We're about how do these actions affect students. And sometimes the legislature forgets that.
All right, Mike Reed, thanks a lot for your update on legislative activities. And as Mike mentioned, we will be keeping you up to date during the final 2 weeks of the session through our Legislative Voice electronic newsletter, through this Capitol Watch program, and also through our daily blog on our website. So please keep yourself informed about the legislative activities in Jefferson City. Thanks for watching, and we hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of Capitol Watch.